Yes, I'm Missy Singleton. I work for the Fish and Wildlife Service. I am housed out of the Fort Worth area, but I do service East Texas as well. And then I go all the way up to close to the Panhandle, probably close to Wichita Falls. And then I stop at the Red River, obviously, because that's our border between Texas and Oklahoma. As my introduction did state, I work for the Partners for Fish and Wildlife program. And if you haven't heard of that program, this is my little sales pitch, my little elevator speech. We provide technical and financial assistance at no cost to you as a private landowner. And that can be for lots of things. It can be because you want to have a large-scale restoration, because you're part of a cow-calf operation and you're a producer and you'd like to have more natives. You don't want to have just a monoculture. It could be because you want to go from ag exemption to wildlife. So I can help you with lots of things. And the best thing I can do is be a facilitator for you to get in communication with other agencies that fit you best. And so if you ever have any questions about that, Julie is a perfect person to ask. Okay, today I'm going to be talking about pocket prairies and ecological oasis. So, probably one of the reasons why you joined an organization like this or you came today is because you are aware of the loss of our Texas prairies. So you already gave me a show of hands of where you live, but just take a look at this map. I'm pretty sure everybody's already seen it, but these are our ecological zones of Texas. Just note how many times you see the word prairie in there. So a large portion of our state used to be a native prairie. So that included the cross timbers and prairies, the blackland prairie. I would classify some prairie within post oak savanna, and even within some certain little meadows of piney woods of East Texas. But much of Texas was historically covered in this, and sadly, only about 1% existed compared to what was here 200 years ago. Okay, so you guys have probably seen something like this. What this represents here is a population projection. It's from 2020 going all the way up to 2050. And it's no surprise, right? There's more people, there's more development. What happens when there's more development? Somebody call it out.
They bulldoze up all the community and all the environment, and then they plant trees that don't belong here,
right?
That aren't native, and it's a mess.
Right, so I'm hearing loss of our native habitat.
And then they cover it up with concrete.
Yep. Watershed management goes down the toilet sometimes. And then also bringing in invasives. Good. Anyone else have any suggestions on what happens with development?
On the same lines, all the habitat's gone.
Yep, all the habitat's gone. So that brings me to the title of my talk. So pocket prairies are kind of like an oasis in an otherwise barren area that used to be native prairie. Okay, so this is why you're here. What is a pocket prairie? I'm glad you asked. A pocket prairie is many things. It's an area dominated by grasses and forbs with little to no trees. Typically 1 acre or less, but can be up to 10 acres. And if you're just really, really gregarious and you really have your work cut out for you, you're someone like Julie who has like a 70-acre one. Yeah, once established, it requires low water use and low maintenance. It's a refuge for native insects and wildlife, and it can be formal and informal. So we'll talk a little bit about formal and informal here in a little bit. So why are pocket prairies important? Somebody raise your hand. I mean, I'm going to tell you answers anyway, but I want your involvement. Yes?
For the bees.
For the bees, our pollinators, good. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Yeah, they're an excellent wildlife habitat.
Yep.
If you're in a rural residential area.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
To show
Yes.
people what it used to be.
Good.
To teach people.
That's a good one, Ann.
The plants that grow in a pocket prairie or a large prairie, their roots go down, ended up breaking up the soils, reestablishing the soils like what they were originally, and help the water to trickle down or up as necessary.
You're
With-
exactly right. So who else would like to continue on my presentation? 'Cause you guys already know this.
We're done.
So this is just to drive a point home about what it looks like for us in the future. So I'm going to use the monarch butterfly as an example. So our Obama administration shed a lot of light on the plight of our pollinators. And in light of that, there was a lot of work that was done to preserve the habitat for the monarch butterfly. So for example, we kind of look at the I-35 corridor as their migratory route, right? So what did we do? We established more pocket prairies at our rest stops. We kind of had a national movement, all hands, all lands on deck to help preserve the monarch butterfly. So once again, take a look at working lands change. On the left here is Dallas, on the right is Wood County. Wood County is not nearly as drastic, right? You don't have nearly as much development. But as the crow flies, you're fairly close to the metroplex, right? It's really a touching point for a lot of you. You might even go there for your doctor's visits, or you have family there. So look at the population change. Yeah, so you can't see the other one, but the population change is expected for Wood County to go up 561%. Yeah, that speaks to a lot of lost habitat. Okay, as someone alluded to, great demonstration, right? Pretty sure you've all seen this, being involved in native plants. So what do pocket prairies help us with? Someone said it before us. They help filter runoff water, reduce erosion, and even store carbon. So all of these roots that are down in the ground, has anybody seen what it looks like when you have a deluge over, say, a monoculture of St. Augustine grass versus what it looks like when you have a deluge over all native bunch grasses? Any images come to mind?
Yeah, I used to belong to a different group of master naturalists. They had a lot of these runoff ones, blacktop, the native grasses versus the different grasses, St. Augustine. And with those native grasses, it holds all the water. With the other monocultures, a lot of it runs up with the topsoil, and with the blacktop, well, there is no topsoil, and it all runs off.
So if you guys didn't hear it in the back, she was describing how these structures are in place. The structure of native bunch grasses help keep our soil and sediment intact during heavy rain events. And so has anybody had the privilege of going out to Gary Price's ranch, 77 Ranch? Julie has. So he has 0 net discharge into his waterways coming off of his property. He has remnants of prairie there. And I have actually seen the bunch grasses kind of lay down in this basket weave maneuver to help and slow down the water as it goes down into our watershed. So, anyhow.
Excuse me, what was the name of the ranch, please?
77 Ranch. And he does tours all the time. Yeah, Sandy.
Have you seen the movie The Biggest Little Farm?
I attempted to, and my kids just went boo. I was like, okay, my failed attempt at some type of documentary.
I hear you. If anybody gets a chance to watch it, as part of it, it's so vast, but it has an excellent example of this. It's about a couple that buys a farm out in California that was a commercial farm and totally restores it. And they have floods at one point, and all the farms around them are flooding like crazy. And at their place, all the water's just soaking in. And I mean, there's so many instances in this movie that support everything that we advocate for. So if you get a chance, you should watch it.
What's the name of it?
Biggest
The
Little Farm.
Biggest Little Farm.
Biggest Little Farm. Sandy's right. It's a really good feel-good story.
It is.
Yeah.
And it tells you the good and the bad too. Some of it, you're biting your nails, wondering what's gonna happen.
And I can only imagine how they rode that wave, experiencing it firsthand.
Very much.
So as someone else alluded to, pocket prairies boost local habitat and increase vital food sources for birds and pollinator insects, in an often sterile urban environment, right? So oftentimes with development, when they come back and they mitigate for having to rip out the tree that they took out to put the parking lot there, there's not always someone in the community that is there to try to mitigate and compromise by having them mitigate their actions by bringing in natives. So oftentimes what happens is they just throw down sod. They don't have any thought to it. They think this is the way that I tie it up and put a nice pretty bow on the project. I've checked all the boxes as my punch list items and I pull out. But sometimes there is an opportunity if there are community members or an organization such as yourself to help step in and say, hey, we have an opportunity here. What about, can someone donate a couple $100 for a seed or something? We could have something else put down so it's not just a total sterile place void of benefit for wildlife. And also, as someone said, I was super excited that you said this, natural and cultural heritage. So how many times have you gone to, some place like this and there's a little sign there and it has a little sound blurb on there about this is how long, for example, boat arc trees. What were boat arc trees used for historically?
Arrows for the
Yep.
Indians.
Arrows for Indians. And it's a teachable moment. And so you see these almost demonstration gardens that they still pass on the same message. They're still really important. What was that grass used? Was it used to weave something? Did they use it in structures? It tells the story of time over and over again. Okay, so this is why you're all here, right? To learn how to create a pocket prairie. So, pick your site. Okay? In your mind's eye, pick your site. Pick a sunny spot. Okay? I am guilty of even making a pocket prairie in an area that is not a sunny spot, and I can tell you that sometimes it's still successful. So, but I'm here to set you up for success. Become familiar with your soil type and moisture. Okay? I put a little website there. If you're going to do a large scale pocket prairie, I request that you take the time to get to know your soil intimately. Have it tested. It can cost in between, there's a price range I put up there, $12 to $91. If you ever work with the Fish and Wildlife Service and you're going to take money from us, we're going to tell you have to get your soil tested anyway. Julie's done it before. It tells you a lot. So it's setting you up for success. Is your pH wrong? Do you need to have a cover crop? Okay? But if you're just going to do some landscaping at your house and designate as a pocket prairie, I don't necessarily recommend that you go through the effort of having your soil tested. In my opinion, more information is always worth more than not having enough. Okay, prepare your site. Clear your areas of weeds, and that can be done in several different ways. Before I start on that list there that you can go ahead and read, someone who already started their pocket prairie, tell me, did you have existing turf grass?
Yeah, we call them weeds.
Weeds, okay. Okay. So clear your area of weeds, and that can be done in several different ways. If you have a large area that already has turf grass, you can use a sod cutter. You can also do the same thing with a shovel. It's just going to be more elbow grease. You can hand weed it. You can even mow it, but that's not recommended necessarily or effective if you have Johnson grass or Bermuda. Ask Julie about that one. But no, in all seriousness, it's okay to not want to use glyphosate, and it's also okay to use glyphosate. Okay, so if you have a large scale operation and you're looking for the best bang of your buck, yes, it might be to just blow and go and annihilate everything that's there. It's not always the popular opinion as a biologist to stand up here and say those things to you, but I am not a purist, right? I can see the long game, your end game, and providing better quality habitat for our pollinators and wildlife. And you can also try solarization. Has anyone ever tried solarization? Yes. How did it go for you? It went well.
I just took
Small
it off.
area.
A small area.
Small area.
Yeah. So, yes, ma'am.
Can you describe solarization?
Yeah, solarization. So there are about 3 different classifications, and I am not an expert in this matter. So is it called oculation and solarization? So one of them you can use with a clear tarp. One of them you can use with a black tarp. So when you're using the black tarp, you typically think that you're sterilizing the soil. So a lot of people also do this when they're trying to get rid of grubs or worms or something in the soil, that they just want to annihilate everything in there in a very natural manner. Solarization is going to be using the use of plastic and the sun, the heat of the sun, to kill everything that's in the soil. So in order to do this most effectively, I'll just spend just a few minutes describing it. It's best if you trench around it, but you don't have to. Tuck the plastic in, make sure that you've got it tight so you don't have airflow underneath it. Make sure you heavily water the area before you cover it with the tarp. It aids in helping to create that condensation and heat buildup within the area. And then you can weight it down with rocks. And so I say check on it every couple of months. If you're not getting a good dieback, you can go ahead and leave it there for longer. Once you've gone over one season and you rip it up and you got pretty good dieback, keep an eye on any of weeds that might be popping up, and they should be fairly easy to grub out with your hands. Small scale area here though, because tarps are expensive. And what does it say there at the very bottom?
No tilling.
No tilling. Somebody want to take a stab at why we don't want to till?
Oh, yeah, in there.
Yeah.
Done that.
Hard lesson, right? It's a hard lesson to learn. You don't want to disturb what is already in the soil to increase the chances of it coming up as well. Okay, so the less soil disturbance, the better. Also, not putting ruts into the ground means that if you have a rain event, you have less likely to have your sediment movement when that happens. Okay, now how to plant your pocket prairie. Okay, in order to do that, you're going to need to know three things, and I'm going to break all of these up. When to plant, what to plant, and planting procedure. Okay, so show of hands, give me a 1, 2, or 3, just raise it up. What are you most comfortable with if you were to do this? If you were to start your pocket prairie, what stage of this do you think you'd be most comfortable with?
All of it? It's not a big thing.
When to plant? Okay, good. Very high confidence with all three. Everyone feeling very confident? Yeah.
We
okay.
always are in the beginning.
Okay. Because you're none the wiser.
We don't know anything.
Okay. When to plant, what to plant, and how to do it.
If I have a problem, I'll go see Julie.
That's right. That's right. Okay. So when to plant? Fall or spring? What's your opinion?
Fall.
Well,
Fall? Some people like fall.
Both.
You like spring? I do both too. Yep, I do both.
I would do both.
Yep. More important though is to time your planting with when it's going to rain. Okay, so some of you are doing pocket prairie areas where you can't move irrigation to it. Okay, I've worked with producers, I've worked with outdoor classrooms, I've even worked with the Fort Worth Zoo, where we have had areas where pocket prairies were becoming established and they had no source of water, and it gave them such bad heartburn. They were so scared every time I came on site. Oh my, there's nothing to show her. It's just, and I say, it's okay. So what I want to press upon you is that when you're doing pocket prairies, also keep in mind you're using native seeds. If you're not, you should be, okay? They are adapted to our ecoregion and our rainfall, okay? So don't necessarily treat it like you would something you'd buy at a big box store, okay? It's not Bermuda grass, sod. You're not gonna have to water all the time. Okay, what does that say? What to plant? I think it says what to plant.
Yes.
Okay. Use local natives, right? Obvious choice. Yes, shake your head, yes, yes. Uh-huh. Yep, agree with me here. Yep.
If you're gonna do it, you do it right.
Right. Plant annuals and grasses with seed. Okay? That's my opinion. You don't have to do it. Okay? Every year, Audubon Society, Native Plant Societies have plant sales. I buy grass that's already established. It's okay. Again, I'm not a purist. Plant perennials as mature plants. And not always a good idea to plant in rich soils. So, anybody want to take a stab at why that's not always a good idea?
They get burned.
They can get burned, but also they can bolt. Okay? And so going back to planting perennials as mature plants, so a lot of people are going to tell you to put seed down and then put your plants that you're going to plant in first. I like to do it the other way around, and that's because I have the end goal in my head, not thinking through the steps of what I need to do to make it look like that in the very end. And what I end up inevitably doing is planting the plants too close together and not allowing them time to expand. And so I actually plant my perennials first, anything that I buy in a pot, and then I actually put seed down. But again, you can do it your own way. Plant successional blooms. Anybody's ever heard anybody talk about pollinators? They know why. What does successional blooming provide to them?
Food for each one of the different times that they need it, for
Right.
the insects and other.
Yes. So if you ever come to work with me and I'm helping you on a project like this, I'm going to give you, I can help you find a seed list, but most of the time people can find it pretty readily off the web or from an organization like yours. I'm going to ask that you find at least 3 blooming species for each season that we have. So that would be fall, spring, and summer, okay? Summer can be a pinch point, I understand that, but there are things that bloom in Texas during the summertime. Okay, 70-30 grasses to forbs. Okay, in my world we call wildflowers forbs. Anybody else call them forbs? No, just call them flowers. Okay. So again, this is a sliding scale. Anytime that you're working with us, we recommend a percentage of 70% grasses and 30% forbs. So you're giving soil stability. You're also providing structure for ground nesting birds or any other animals that take advantage of bunch grasses and or seed production. A lot of our migratory birds eat seeds. And balance that out with something for our pollinators, okay? You're also giving more relief and structure and appeal to your pollinator garden. And it most mimics what used to be here on our native prairie, okay? I realize we're not all grazing cows, buffalo aren't coming through anymore, but still. And it's not always a good idea to plant on a rich soil, so I just alluded to that. However, I'm not sure if I put it in the slide. If you have an opportunity to mix in some shale, like Spanish shale, that's hard to say. I do recommend doing that.
We have sandy soils.
You have sandy soil, okay. I have more clay
I mean,
soil.
PRAIRIES though.
Okay. Excuse me. I am blessed with sandy soil.
You are. Do most of you have clay soil?
Yes.
Yeah. No? Sandy, you have sand.
Sandy
Okay.
loam.
Sandy loam.
Sandy.
And this is what you did?
I'm sorry?
Expanded shale.
Shale, yes.
Fabulous.
So where do we get this at?
And that's a luxury too. You can get it from suppliers where you buy compost and organic matter and mulch and things like that. So me personally, my area was small enough. I did fold it in to my area, and it really goes a long way in aiding in more moisture retention. But it is a luxury and it's an additional cost expense. So
Missy, do you have any experience with liming for clay?
I don't. So I have had some people that have worked with us through our program who have been recommended to do it because of their soil testing results. And the same people that provide the information of what your soil needs will also tell you how to calculate how to do that. And so I've even heard that some of the, I don't know, Julie, if you've had any experience of any of the seed suppliers will help you with that too.
Yeah.
If you call them up and you say, I'm battling this depletion or I need something else added to it, if they'll help you with like different phases of it.
I did lime about 15 acres. That was
Yeah.
extremely compacted,
Mm-hmm.
and I starting to see the difference after about 2.5 years. Takes that long.
Is that just with one application?
One application, I did 1.5 tons per acre.
Oh, and who helped you come up with that rate?
NRCS.
There we go. Yeah.
And was that on clay?
No, this is on an old dairy that's extremely compacted. I have sandy loam on top of a, sandy loam, and a foot down there's clay.
Okay.
So how to plant. So start from bare soil if you can. So I don't want to keep pointing out the obvious, but it's not always feasible for you to start with bare soil. And so I have done both, and I can tell you that you can succeed without starting at bare soil. It's kind of discouraging because all you read about is the importance of having the seed soil contact, and you've spent so much money on seed. Seed is so expensive. It's going to be one of your most expensive components in doing any type of restoration.
Missy, isn't there a problem with bare soil over if you get a lot of rain that you end up with erosion in the middle of where your pocket prairie if it's
Yeah.
very large?
Yes. Yeah.
Goes down the road.
Yep. And also, the birds will be like, "Oh, thanks. I appreciate the free meal."
Can you put straw or something over the top?
I wouldn't. You can. So you can do straw. You can also
Okay.
do like burlap mats. If you're going to use any type of mat, though, that is going to help stabilize your soil, choose one that is biodegradable, that breaks down, and then please check it frequently to make sure that no small mammals or snakes have gotten trapped in it. But yes, there are certain tips and tricks that you can use for an area that's absolutely void of nothing, and or you are on a slope. And so, yeah, these are all things that you have to combat in your own personal area. So then you're gonna lightly rake. I'm gonna move the box.
That you end up with erosion in the middle of where.
Lightly rake the top inch of the soil.
Yes.
Okay, so what you're doing is you're just lightly disturbing the soil, not gonna gouge it. Remember, a lot of our native seed only requires a planting depth of 1/4 of an inch. It's really, really shallow. And so, in your mind's eye, when you're doing this, don't think that you're planting corn, okay? You're planting native seeds. And when you're doing projects like this, I encourage you to think like the native plant. What would its natural distribution be? Would it be hoof action, a buffalo or cows moving through the landscape and they knock the seed off and it goes to the ground, and then they casually step on it as they're going on their way as they're grazing, right? Just minimal disturbance. Spread seeds evenly at the correct rate. Okay. Your seeding rates are going to be dependent on whether or not you're doing this in a rangeland setting or you're doing it in a garden setting. Okay? And the people who are going to help you with that are going to be the people that you purchase your seed from. Okay? So make sure you tell them, I have a large scale operation. Tell them if you're going to put it in a hopper. Tell them if you're going to have all 4 of your grandkids walking out in a whole line broadcasting it. Tell them what you're going to do so they can help you succeed, okay? And as I just mentioned, gently press the seeds into the surface, okay? Again, we're not burying them deep, okay? We're keeping things very light. And then plant mature plants. Again, sometimes I put the cart before the horse and I plant the mature plants first. And then water in well, okay? So again, just do what you can. I've had people tell me that they went through great efforts of putting 35, 40 feet of hose together. And they were carrying 5-gallon buckets and they were just really killing themselves. So just do your best to plant when it's going to rain. And just remember, these are native seeds, okay? Give them a chance. Give them a chance to do their thing. Most of you are pretty familiar with plant species. I just included a list here of some planting suggestions that includes grasses and flowers. Do you guys have a seed list that you give members, recommended seed lists?
Not seeds, plants.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah,
same thing, I
plants.
guess, but
So NPAT and NIPSOT both have good resources. I thought you guys had it on your website.
It is.
It is?
It's a plant database in general.
Plant database. Okay, good. So that's another resource as well. And then really just a quick Google search will also just give you a lot of information at your fingertips.
Missy, you mentioned that there are a few plants that do bloom throughout the summer.
Yes.
Can you tell me what ones you were referring to? Are they in this list over here?
Yeah, so for your region, I might have to defer to you guys that actually live here. For me, it's Maximilian sunflower.
Yep.
And then
Annual sunflowers.
annual sunflower, and then the coneflowers do for me all summer too.
They're reblooming now.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, I had some emerge with
So
this
it's my
warm weather.
Indian blankets.
Yeah,
Indian blanket.
Indian
Go
blanket.
also.
Oh, they're reblooming.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Mexican hats too.
Mexican hat. My black-eyed Susan kind of hangs on sometimes.
Some of them.
Illinois bundleflowers, no, not so much, but I noticed today and yesterday that the partridge pea is trying to bloom again.
Is
I
it?
know.
Oh,
I know.
I got their look.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's blooming again.
Yeah, everything was thrown off by that really warm spell.
Yeah.
If it helps any, I have dahlias that are within 1 inch of coming through the soil at my house.
Really?
Yes. I was planting a plant, realized I was in the dahlia bed a little bit too close.
So if you do landscaping too, there's some other the coral honeysuckle, the native hort, and the passion vine. Mine also goes pretty long in the summer, but I'm further south than you guys. So you've gone through the whole effort. Okay, you've picked your plants, you picked your area, you've planted everything. So what do you do to maintain it?
Pray over it.
Pray over it, right? Right. So how many of you heard the saying, it sleeps, it creeps, it leaps?
I heard that.
Yeah, yeah. Is that always true?
No.
No, it's not always true. We're dealing with plants in the ground. It's not always true. And then in the case of when I was working with Julie as an example, because I keep coming back to her, inevitably the first year of your project, what are you gonna see?
Nothing.
Nothing that you planted.
Nothing that you planted.
Bad stuff.
Does anybody know why?
Developing the roots.
Well, so they're in process, right?
There's
But-
7 years worth of seeds in the soil.
There you go. You've got a native seed bank. Okay, so you had seeds that existed there before you started your project. And guess what? Some of them are actually native. Yep. So you might have a bumper crop of, what was yours? Sunflower?
Curly dock.
Curly dock. It's something, for me it was pigeonberry. Who knew I had pigeonberry?
Mare's tails. I know.
Yeah, it was a grand surprise. And the first thing I did is I went and grabbed my seed bag and I looked at the back of it and I was like, yep, that's what I thought. No pigeonberries. Yep. So, maintenance. Keep seeds damp for the next 2 to 4 weeks, if you can, right? Just do what you can. De-weed is needed. Okay, you're not always going to recognize what's emerging as something that you planted. Okay, this is a hard lesson to learn. I've done it myself. I've just totally plucked something out that was emerging that I had planted before. So try to, as you get more intimate in knowing your native plants, try to, if you have to, I naturalisted it too. So you can create your own log for your own garden. So you can start to recognize these plants in different stages as they're growing. But de-weed is needed. And mow once a year. Okay? So mowing, well, I'm trying to think of at large scale. If you're not gonna flash graze it and you're not gonna burn it, somehow you need to knock it down once a year. Okay?
What's the best time?
And in my opinion, in Texas, it's going to be like January and February. So once you've done all this effort and you have an emergence, keep your efforts there and wait till everything goes to seed. And then what you want to do is give it a chance to let those seed heads drop and fall down to the ground so you don't have to reseed. The last thing you want to do is remove the tops of everything and mow it before it goes to seed. Going to seed is not only going to provide a food source for our native pollinators and wildlife, it's also going to just, mowing a little bit is gonna leave some of those stalks there, and some of our native bees actually use those little tubes, for shelter.
Missy, I'm only kind of kidding about this.
What's that?
Can you have a prescribed burn?
You can have a prescribed burn.
Okay.
So depending on how large of an area you have, our maintenance going forward is gonna say, we're gonna ask you to defer those things for probably the first 3 years. And this really depends on what has happened with our rainfall and our temperature the year before. And so something may be very atypical or underperform on certain years. And so your management going forward is gonna change from year to year. But in general, once you've established an area, we typically tell our landowners, if it's a large scale restoration project, to wait 3 years before you bring in cows and flash graze it, before you consider heavily disking it, mowing it down, shredding it even, or burning it. Yeah. And don't overwater. And reseed is necessary. Okay? So if you want to reseed, you're going to have an area now that you have established bunch grasses and forbs in, and you're going to say to myself, it doesn't look at all like what it did when I started. So what do? Well, good news, you can still reseed and you can still have good seed soil contact. And so you want to mow down about as low as you can possibly go, and then you can put that seed on after. Or again, here's Julie. She propagates one area, she transfers that to the area she wants it to grow in. Okay, additional tips. Tell your prairie story and add your personal touch. And don't be afraid to get creative. Okay? In the very beginning of the talk, I used the words informal and formal. Okay? Does anybody want to give me an example of what they think would be an informal pollinator, pocket prairie? Informal. Somebody said my property.
It's not refined into looking like something out of a magazine.
Right. So aesthetically, it is more representative of what our native prairie used to be. Okay, so an example of formal.
You choose where things are and you plant it intentionally, and you maintain it to stay there.
The benefits of having a formal pocket prairie is, one, you can fly under the radar with your HOA. Okay, some of us live in an area where we have restrictions. You might have code compliance too, that you can't have grass over a certain height. So if that is the case too, somebody in my profession can help you with a seed mix, so you can have something that is a short grass prairie. You can still have bunch grasses, native grasses, and forbs, but you're not gonna have the true prairie. Again, I'm not a purist, right? Anything that's not a monoculture and has increased diversity is going to benefit our wildlife and our pollinators. So another thing about having a formal pocket prairie is that aesthetically it's pleasing. It can be tucked away and hidden in areas. It can be at our fire station. It could be at our school. It could be in our landscaping in our house. And so this allows you to have, depending on the area, either free form or having form and function, so you can fit it into your area. I put 2 pictures up here of signs. So Texas Parks and Wildlife sadly doesn't have the recognition anymore, but the Native Plant Society of Texas does. Does anybody have this really cool sign? Yeah. Good, you just got it. Oh, good. Okay, so NIPSOT actually has 2 signs, but I like the one with the QR code on it. And so, again, if somebody's walking in your neighborhood, they don't have to interact with you in any way. They can scan that QR code. And it also says to them, like, oh, wow, look, we can do this too. Just this tiny little oasis, this ecological oasis right here in our urban area. And then the one above is National Wildlife Federation. They do also have designated signs. And so I always encourage people to, depending on what area that your pocket prairie is in, have some designated signs. And if it's in an area that is somewhere like Julie, she has an outdoor classroom, she's gonna have interpretive information there for people to glean more information. And so Signage goes a long way. QR codes go a very long way, okay? It's not just since the pandemic that people became where they want to talk to people, but QR codes was like one of the best inventions ever. And that's it. So let me know if you have any questions. Thank you for coming.